Welcome to Clientology, the art and science of client getting. In this podcast, we're going to discuss how you can attract, convert, and deliver. So attract is how do you attract your dream clients while simultaneously repelling nightmare clients? And convert, we're converting those perfect prospects into dream clients. And lastly, under deliver, we're going to focus on topics around how do we deliver wow experiences. The theme throughout is how do we become more referable? How do we build referral programs and deliberately have systems that work to bring us a steady stream of perfect prospects and dream clients? Welcome to the show. Our guests are all experts in their field and they've agreed to share their insights with my audience. I hope you enjoy and I look forward to your comments and feedback.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Clientology. Today, we're here to talk with my friend Dan Sorkin. Dan, why don't you introduce yourself and just tell the audience who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I like to say I'm a comedian by night and a comedic marketer by day. And what that really means is that I focus on helping businesses create entertaining marketing that prospects want to watch, that not only explains what the business does, sells their product or service, but also gives the audience that little bit of entertainment that makes a difference between a forgettable piece of marketing and one that can, go viral or really make them think, I want to work with these people. And I'm like to say I'm best known for what I call my business bypass surgery, which is where I pull you under. I'm banned from practicing medicine. No, it's where I go in and I really, the same way that heart attacks are caused by blockages in the arteries, I find when revenue slows down or it's not growing as much as you can, there's often blockages in the business where there's easy revenue wins, but they don't see it either because they're too close to it or just not their area of expertise. And I just go in, unblock those blockages and get the revenue flowing again.
I love it. Now, how did you go from, and by the way, there's a lot of science around people buying from people that make them laugh. How did you go from being a comedian by night and a comedic marketing person by day? What drove that change in you?
Yeah, so it's an interesting story. I was in the direct response industry, which is, for those who don't know, the entire purpose is to get people to take action, whether it's click on this link in the email, click on this Facebook ad, buy this thing, not so much branding. Though we can write it to fit a brand, but the focus is on getting people to take action. And I was working for one of the Agora financial companies, which is a $1 billion direct response company. All they do all day is create marketing campaigns that drives hundreds of millions of dollars in sales. And they brought in this consultant from the process, I think it's called the process communication model, something like that. And what he explained to us is that everybody has a primary mode of communicating, right? Some people think in facts and logic. Some people think in emotions. Some people think in opinions. And everyone can think in all these modes, but your primary is where you're primarily based. And the farther you are from a mode, the harder it is for you to think in that mode and be persuaded by that mode. And it turns out one mode is called rebel, which is it's people who want to know where the fun is. And what blew my mind was that 20% of the population is primarily a rebel. So it's between the thinkers, the feelers, and the rebels, that's 75% of your prospects. And the fact is, very few people try to put humor in their marketing at all, and most of them aren't good at it. So I was like, okay, this is where I need to jump in.
I love it. And I think that's important, just as a general comment for our audience. Do the things you love. It doesn't feel like work, and you're going to be more successful as a start. Now, you talk about your business bypass. What are some misconceptions people have when they come to you? What are the things they think they know that you have to tear them down and start clean on?
So I'd say the biggest thing we need to clean up or clarify to business owners, and this isn't even related to the business bypass, but just in general. The first one is that it's not about marketing yourself as better. It's about marketing yourself differently. And the reason I give is there's an old Ben Stiller movie where there's a guy who's like, hey, you know that 8-minute Tae Bo? I'm going to beat it. I'm going to make 7-minute Tae Bo. Yeah, well, what about when someone makes 6-minute Tae Bo? Then I'll make 5-minute Tae Bo. And it's a silly example, but it kind of shows you how trying to market yourself as better is a race to the bottom, right? Because at a certain point, your prospects either stop believing you or you can't fulfill your promises. And neither of that is a good situation to be in. I'd argue that being unable to fulfill your promises is a worse one. But also it's like, let's take accountants, for example. At what point, what are you going to say? I will do your taxes twice as fast as the other guy and get you 5 times the return. You can't promise that. And so it has to be different, not better. That's the first thing. And then the other thing I point out to them, and they're like, because they ask me, well, how do you know you're going to find these blockages? Where do you find them? The first is most businesses have what I call intangible assets. And intangible assets are, it could be you have this partnership where you could upsell and get a referral fee. It could be you have an audience that you're never communicating with, whether it's your social media or your email list. It could be that your clients are happy with you, but you never do the work to get referrals from them. You don't have a referral system in place, or you never communicate with them to get them to buy something again. Or it could be that your economics are all screwed up. And this leads me into the third point of people need to know their numbers. What is your lifetime value? What is your average order value? What is your gross profit margin? What products have the biggest margin for you? And Jeff, I know you're a former accountant, so I'm probably preaching to the choir here.
I would say, Dan, and I wish you were, but the reality is, and this was a hard acceptance for me, most accountants focus on the top line revenue and the bottom line profit because those are the two most important numbers on a tax return. It is rare, and this is why I think you and I need to have this conversation. It's rare for them to get into the specifics of, which of our customers are the most profitable, which of our product lines are the most profitable. You can function very well as an accountant and do great things for your client without actually ever getting into the specifics of the day-to-day of the business. So it is a funny thing because most people, by the way, assume accountants do this. Very few do it well or know that they do it or realize the value of it. So hopefully one of the things we'll get more accountants out there listening to this saying, there is nobody better equipped to do this analysis, and to partner with the marketers out there and to say, okay, here are some things we can help you with, or, if you need numbers, here's what we need to do. But unfortunately, way too many accountants, and I used to be one of them, we focus on the year-end tax return, running the day-to-day business. That's beyond our scope.
Yeah, and it's funny you said that because one of the things I've begun to do very recently, and I wish I've done this earlier, is if I'm working with a client, is say, can we bring an accountant onto your accountant onto this strategy session? Because he's going to be able to either have insight at the top of his head, or he can get it by looking at it. But also, it doesn't matter if I can bring you 10x sales, double your sales, whatever number you want. If your accountant tells us it's going to break your business.
Yeah. And that is a huge thing, knowing you can double a business. The real question is, should you?
Yeah. And a lot of times what the business owner wants is not really to double their sales. They want to double their profit, which is a totally different thing.
And one you and I could spend all day on. Now, when somebody's looking at their business and they're thinking, do I need Dan or not? I like to make it really easy. What is the biggest problem that you solve for a business? What language would you use around that?
Yeah. So generally, the businesses I work with are the ones that have grown to at least 500,000, could be in the millions. But one thing they've noticed is they've their growth has slowed down. Either they're still growing, but much slower than they're used to, and they don't quite know why, or they've just stagnated, or they've even started to reverse for whatever reason. And because at that point, I can go in, I can figure out what's going wrong. Often it's just that what got them there won't get them to the next place, because now their competitors are taking notice. Now they have to spend money in advertising, which is a totally different ball game than just word of mouth and referrals. And it's let me put out the fire and get you growing again through the business biopsy. And then B, let's figure out how we can actually position you in the market so uniquely that there's basically a moat your competitors can't swim across.
I love it. And one of my friends and coaches likes to say new levels create new devils. And I think that's appropriate because, as you said, what got me here isn't going to get me there.
Exactly.
All right. Now, I like to give practical advice. So what are a couple of, maybe 2 or 3 quick wins somebody listening to this today can go away and either diagnose in their business or maybe take action on based on your years and years of expertise? So
the very best thing you can do, because most business owners don't do it nearly enough, is to talk to your customers. Talk to customers, talk to prospects, and really get a deep understanding of why they bought your service or product. And here's the thing, it's never their first answer. It's why did you sign up for the gym membership? Well, I wanted to get fit. Why? Well, I was tired of, being ashamed of taking my shirt off at the beach. Why? Well, because I've been picked on for my whole life for the way I looked. And so what? And well, I finally want to feel what it's like to be one of those guys who has 6-pack abs. But you see how you can't just go with the first answer, because if you talk with them long enough and are really open and really curious and have the curiosity of a 5-year-old, they'll tell you exactly what to say in your marketing. And they'll tell you exactly what they want. They'll tell you why they're not happy with your competitors. They'll tell you why they went with you. They'll tell you things you never even thought about. So that's the very best thing you can do. And it's something you should make a practice of doing on a regular basis. Now, the other thing I'll say is also, Jeff, we talked about this beforehand, how every business has the 20% best customers that pay them the most, are the easiest to deal with, and we just want to clone those. Talk to your staff and make sure who you think the 20% best are is actually who they think they are, because it could be they'll say, no, it's not Jim. Jim makes us asks for way too much, never pays on time, blah, 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 blah. It's Jeff. Jeff is lovely. He pays on time. He barely wants anything. We want 10 more Jeffs. Yeah. And also, and the last thing I'll talk about is we've talked about knowing your numbers, but you have to go in and once you get the numbers, ask yourself, do the numbers even make sense? Can I make money this way? If I have to pay this much to even get a customer, and it costs me this much to fulfill the order, and I only have 5 cents in profit left, do I really have a sustainable business here? And that seems like such an obvious thing, but most business owners don't do it, or they don't do it on a regular basis to be like, okay, with the new data I have, knowing what I know now, are the numbers what I think they are, and do they still make sense?
And I think I would add to that a lot of people treat data analysis as a one and done, but the reality is it's an ever ongoing cycle. You need to be always looking, to be feedback hungry. So I think that's some great things. Now, when people are starting to work with you, are there some common friction points that are slowing them down and thus preventing them from getting the most out of working with you?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest one is, everyone I there's this weird sort of cognitive dissonance that people have, which is where they come to me and they'll be like, we want to be different and we want to be bold and we want to like stand out because we know that's what you need to do when you're marketing. And then I'll be like, okay, let's do this. No one ever did that before, and now we're scared. It's you got to make a decision here, and understand it's okay to be interesting with your marketing. It's okay to be entertaining. It's okay to be funny and to take risks and see what happens, because that's all marketing is. And I think that's what most people don't understand. Marketing is having a theory on what will work, testing it, seeing what happens, and then adjusting based on your results. And you do have to use some common sense, because there's definitely been marketing campaigns that have been so bad that they've ruined the company. Peloton, that commercial comes to mind, if you know what I'm talking about. And then there were like there was like a real estate agent that they did a parody of Fresh Prince to Bel-Air as a commercial or video or something, and they got shut down very quickly after that. So common sense does apply, but that's actually why you want to talk to your customers first, because I'll go back to that. Peloton's whole thing was an already very fit woman being like, I want to get even more fit, and her husband like congratulating her, and women everywhere were like, what is this?
Yeah.
But if Peloton had just talked to their main customer base, there's a million better approaches they could have done. And the Denver real estate agents, they thought they were being cute and funny, and completely ignored the fact that there was a lot of gentrification going on there in their area, a lot of angry feelings about that. So it's okay to take risks, but it's not okay to take stupid risks.
I love that.
I feel like I wandered away from what the question was.
No, that's I mean, really, truly, if people don't talk, and it absolutely fascinates me when people say, yeah, I did my marketing, and I will always ask, how many clients did you talk to? And they go, well, we haven't. And it's like, how well do you think your message is going to land? I'll give an example. One accountant, and unfortunately, there's a lot of people who buy the little templated websites. It lists the services literally by the terms the tax department uses for them. Well, nobody wants a 1040 NR or a 1040 or whatever it is. They just want to know that their tax return's filed.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I'll add a second big friction point, is that people really misunderstand the difference between strategies and tactics. Creating a Facebook campaign, creating SEO, creating Google ads, whatever it is, those are all tactics. But that's not the strategy. Who do you serve? What's the amazing offer that you're going to give them? How do you stand out? What are your marketing economics? Those are all questions you need to answer first before you launch marketing campaigns, because everything else is just tactics that are based off those. And that's not to say tactics are important. There's amazing media buyers out there. There's amazing SEO guys, website guys, but they can only work with what you give them.
I love that. Now, this is your moment to brag. So tell me, again, don't identify the client unless you want to, but tell me a little story about somebody that worked with you, what it was like to work with you, and what was their life like afterwards?
Oh yeah, so I worked with a client. He had a pest control company, and he focused on commercial businesses, restaurants, that sort of thing, which gave him a big problem because pest control is very reactionary, right? Nobody wakes up thinking, oh, I want to call a pest control guy today. They see a rat or a cockroach and they Google pest control and get the first one they see or whatever it is. So the question is, how do you get your foot in the door, and how do you become that guy they call? So the thing you notice there is that a restaurant has to shut down if it turns out they have an infestation problem. So I had my client create what I call the pest risk assessment. And we called up restaurants and businesses and said, hey, how would you like an assessment that tells you what your risk of getting pests in your company is and how you can prevent it? Now he had a foot in door. he could upsell them. Well, hey, you're at this risk. Let us help do X, Y, and Z to prevent it. And then we could upsell them subscriptions. And then if when hopefully that business never got an infestation in the first place, but when their friends did, because they didn't use my client and said, hey, does anybody know a good pest control guy? My client was the guy they called.
I love it. And I think it's very important to know when people are looking for you, because again, when it's happened, oops, we got a rat infestation. There's a different buying cycle than I'd really like to not have a rat infestation ever, so it's good to know your audience. Now, if people are out there and they're looking and they want to maybe follow you or get to know you a little better, what's the best place for them to find you and learn more about what it's like to work with you?
Sure, they can go to my site, which is lmaomarketing.com, or I thought you would enjoy that that URL, or they can email me at dan@lmaomarketing.com. Generally, my site focuses on getting them to the business biopsy, but I'll either create a coupon code for them, which will just be Clientology, or I'll have a place where they can mention that they are one of your listeners, and we'll get them a good deal on the biopsy.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the show notes. Now, Dan, I could chat with you for hours because I find it absolutely brilliant, the combination of humor and marketing. Is there anything I should have asked you that my viewers, maybe if they were listening, they'd be like, oh, you should ask them this. Is there anything I should have asked you?
I would say a lot of people probably are wondering what I mean by marketing economics, which is one of the first things I look at. And what I mean by that is your advertising campaign or your marketing campaign, whether it's referrals or it's Facebook ads or whatever it is when you look at the numbers, have you given yourself the highest chance of success? And what I mean by that is, if it's just, hey, click this ad to go to my website and hopefully you buy something that's $5,000, you're probably not going to get a lot of success. But if, for instance, and you don't always have to do it this way, but it's very easy. Hey, buy this $10 thing, and if you buy it, then you're upsold to a $100 thing, and then it takes you to, now you get them on your email list so you can cultivate them for a while and then upsell them to a $5,000 thing. Well, you're probably at least breaking even on the $5 to $100 upsell, and you can get them all on the back end. Obviously, how that works is different for each business. That's just one model. But this idea of, hey, I'm just going to run ads and hope that they buy my $10,000 thing usually doesn't work.
Exactly. And I think that's, too many people go straight to close the deal.
Mm-hmm.
And, I equate it to relationships in life. You wouldn't just walk up to a stranger and say, hey, let's get married. There's a couple of steps in between.
Yeah. And to take that analogy to its limit, even if, so let's say you go and you say, hey, well, you go on a date with me, and they say yes. Well, they're not ready to get married then either. You still got to date them, hopefully once or twice before you make a marriage proposal. And I think that's a big thing people miss, is just because they buy your $5 thing or $100 thing, now you need to cultivate them and educate them and build relationships with them for them before they buy your $5,000, $10,000, $100,000 thing.
And I think that the piece you and I are assuming that our listeners need to understand, how much do they invest in somebody to get them to go that next step, and having a deliberate process for thinking it through. But if somebody is worth $10,000 to you, you can't spend $100,000 to get that client.
Exactly.
The economics just tip upside down really easy. So one of the things I would encourage anybody listening is, if you haven't had the conversation with your accountant about the minutia of things like return on investment, customer acquisition costs, definitely have a conversation with Dan, and go have a conversation with your accountant. My advice to you is, if your accountant doesn't want to talk to you about the economics of your marketing, you probably want a different accountant.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And I know we're running short on time, so I'll just end with this, which is, your business isn't siloed. It's one huge system, which means marketing is connected to your accountant, and that's connected to your sales, which is connected to your operations. So this idea of, I'm going to talk to my marketer, then I'm going to talk to my accountant, then I'm going to talk to my operations guy, it's not a good way to work, because if the marketer comes up with this great idea, but operations can't pull it off because they're already at their bandwidth, or the accountant is like, we can't afford this, we don't have the margins, that's not going to help you. So you don't want to keep your vendors siloed. You want them to be a team working for you and working together for you.
And I will definitely thank you for that. I think that is the most insightful advice. If you guys are listening and you've made it this far, if your advisors want to advise you in isolation, I'd be really nervous, because again, you don't treat one symptom and then the next and the next. You need to have that holistic approach, because sometimes, I think you said that right at the beginning, Dan, you can double somebody's revenues and they go out of business twice as fast because their profits weren't there.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Dan, I really want to appreciate and thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate your time. And I will share in the show notes how people can get in touch with you. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you for having me on.